If you watched my birth story for the newest edition of our family, I referenced in there that a couple of times that the week leading up to our birth was honestly just chaotic and stressful. And so I wanted to make a whole nother video explaining all that because it's honestly a story all on its own and one that I have really never heard before. And so I thought you guys would find it interesting to hear about our week leading up to the birth. So just a little bit of background is that we were planning a home birth. We got to have a home birth. If you want to hear the whole birth story, again, that's on this channel. We were planning a home birth, and one of the things that me and my husband decided pretty early on in the pregnancy is that we were going to do just a late ultrasound just to confirm position for this birth. It just honestly felt low risk, low cost, and like something that would just make us feel better. So at 39 and 3, the days themselves are actually really important because stuff happened very, very quickly throughout this time. So at 39 and 3, I just scheduled an ultrasound at an elective place that just confirmed position. That's all I cared about. And whenever we did that, we learned that she was in what is considered an oblique lie. It's not transverse, it's not cephalic. And I now know, looking back and after having done the whole week after that, is that she was just moving around a lot. And so at the time of the ultrasound, she happened to be oblique. She was really close to cephalic, but she was oblique. So I wasn't panicked, but I wanted her to be in a really optimal position for birth. And so that is whenever I started doing a lot of positioning work. This time around, I am putting a heavy focus on aiding my body postpartum, and one of the ways that I am doing that is by consuming fresh juices, which is why I am excited to introduce Aito as the sponsor of today's video. Making juice from home is a wonderful way to get a lot of value out of your produce and get a ton of nutrients into your body. This juicer makes it both fun and easy to make juices from home. I love that I can experiment with different combinations of produce to make different juices from home. I also love that I can kind of disguise foods in there. I'm not a huge kale person, but I love kale in juices, and it's just an easy way to get those nutrients into my body. Using this juicer is extremely easy. Both setup and cleanup are so simple and straightforward to do. I also love that the hopper has a really big mouth, so you can put whole fruits into it. You really don't have to chop up your produce all that much, and it just turns it into juice. So the actual process of making the juice is pretty easy. Making juice at home is so much cheaper than buying fresh squeezed juices, and it's a really good way to get all of the nutrients out of your produce, which you are spending your hard-earned money on. So I really love that about juicing at home. I just used the Aito app to find a recipe for a cucumber, apple, ginger juice, and now I am going to make that juice. The juice comes out totally pulp free. And the pulp is fully wrung out, so we're not wasting any juice. I love that this juicer is really easy to clean, making juicing so easy to do every day. If you are ready to start making healthy juices from home in a super easy and convenient way, make sure to head to the link in my description to get your own Aito juicer. Thanks so much to Aito for sponsoring today's video. I spent that week going to chiropractic. I don't believe I did acupuncture at that point, but I did some chiropractor appointments just to get myself adjusted to try and maybe make some more room for her to go fully head down. I did the mile circuit again just to make more room for her to go fully head down. During that week, we had several people checking her position, like the chiropractor was willing to check her position just by feeling, and she was definitely head down and kind of moving a lot, but definitely going head down. And at points was head down and even on the other side of like oblique, but the other way. So she was just moving a lot during that week. So we thought, okay, she's just cozy. She's not, nothing's wrong. And nothing was wrong. Nothing was wrong literally at all. So at 40 and 3, so this is a week after the ultrasound confirming that she was basically head down. At 40 and 3, I was laying down And I felt like all at once, I at the time thought that I was having like contractions, and they were like really painful and weird and like strong, and they went on every 5 minutes, and then after 20 minutes they just stopped. So I was like, that was really weird. Like, I was like, am I in full-blown labor, or like what's happening? And so obviously that was around 11. I just went to bed around 11:30 and kind of didn't really think much of it. And the next day, so at 40 and 4, we had a midwife appointment here at our house. And on that day, actually 2 of the midwives came, the 2 midwives that were going to be at the birth. There's one main midwife that I had been seeing like for all of my appointments, and then the other one came that day too. And they were feeling for her position like they always do. And they just were kind of stumped. They were like, we don't know, we can't find her head. Like, they were like, we don't know if she's maybe lower in the pelvis or if she's posterior. And so my midwife is really not aggressive. So she was like not going to pressure me to get an ultrasound, but I was like, I think that maybe we should just go get an ultrasound. And she was like, I think that could be a really good idea. So thankfully there was a appointment available for immediately following that midwife appointment. So I just left my house, went and got an ultrasound. And that is whenever I learned that what I was feeling the night before that I thought maybe were contractions, I didn't give them a ton of thought. What I was feeling that night, and now I know for sure after feeling it again, was her flipping to the breech position. So I went to that ultrasound, and the tech was so incredibly, or the sonographer was so incredibly kind, but she was like, I'm so sorry, but that is a bum. She was like, and she was like down low, and she was like, she's breech. And so I am casual about telling it now because everything worked out. She ended up flipping back, spoiler alert, and we ended up having the home birth that we wanted. I was not casual about this whenever I was told this. I have never heard of someone having a baby flip breech after 40 weeks, after being confirmed head down for several weeks. And now knowing exactly when she did it, I can confidently say that she flipped after 40 weeks pregnant. I have heard of, my sister had a baby that flipped after 38 weeks, did the same thing. She was cephalic, she flipped to breech, and then I think my sister did a lot of stuff, and then she flipped back to cephalic. But that was at 38 weeks. I've never heard of this at 40 weeks. So I was not chill. I definitely called my husband quite upset and just not really knowing what to do. I had never dedicated like a ton of thought or time to thinking about what I would do if I had a breech baby. I know that people say it's possible to deliver them vaginally. I was also a VBAC, and so we couldn't find any provider that was willing to do that. There was literally no one willing to see a VBAC breech birth. I've not looked into it to know if that's good or bad or whatever. I didn't look into the possibility of delivering breech because it wasn't an option unless we wanted to go unassisted, which me and my husband are both not comfortable with. So all of that to say, basically after that ultrasound, it kicked off a very chaotic week that felt like months condensed down into like 3 days. So I left the ultrasound. I texted some friends that I knew would want the update, but also would be praying for us. And we, at that point, of course, had a breech baby. I had already had a chiropractic appointment on the calendar that day from the oblique line, just from like wanting to make sure that she was good, like wanting to make sure that we were doing everything we can to have her in a good position. So I, of course, went to that chiropractic appointment and informed her that I was breech, and they were very kind and let me do acupuncture that day as well. So basically it feels like we did weeks of position work in like 2 days. The reason why we decided not to go get a C-section instantly was that she was still sounding amazing. And of course, everyone says they can't flip past 40 weeks. There's not room. But I had documented and known that she just did. So I was confident that if we did some stuff, maybe she could flip back. Because she had just flipped. So I was like, well, she had room on Tuesday, so why would she not have room on Thursday? So I'm like, there's no way she got that big. So we tried so many things. Obviously, if during that time I would have gone into labor, we would have gone into the hospital and had a C-section delivery. That was the plan. I'm not at all willing to put her or myself or the family in risk just to avoid a C-section. If that would have happened, if I would have gone into labor, we would have done that. Thankfully, I did not. So it afforded us, we had a luxury in time because I didn't go into labor and we could work on the position. So I want to share what we did and what I thought worked because I've never heard this, and I know a lot of people have breech babies, and maybe if you have a breech baby, it would be encouraging to you to know that mine flipped back to cephalic at, I believe, 40 and 5. So we did chiropractic. We did, I think, a visit every day until she flipped back, until we knew she flipped back. We did chiropractic. We did acupuncture. We did spinning babies at home. So I was doing the inverted, what are those called? The things where you have your knees on the couch and your elbows on the floor. Why can't I think of what those are called? I'll write it on here because I'll look it up. We did the breech tilt where you have the ironing board on the bed and you're laying on it, or like the ironing board up against the couch and you're laying on it like that. And we did the side lying release. I did several mile circuits, and that was all stuff we did at home. So we were spending several hours a day at home. I was in a state of mind, and I thankfully got encouraged by some friends to do this. And my husband was willing to try anything. I was starting to get a little bit like, okay, we're spending a lot of money on the chiro appointments and the acupuncture and all this stuff. Like, should we really do this? We got convinced to try moxibustion. That is basically where for people that are into this, I'm going to really not fully, I'm not going to be able to adequately explain what it is because I don't understand it. The only reason why I did it was because it has pretty good, like statistically, it's pretty good at turning breech babies. And we were in a state of willing to try anything mode. So this is probably not something that I would normally, like, I think that normally I have the type of personality that would be like, there's no way that could work. But I actually think it's played a massive role. So basically what we did is we booked a moxibustion appointment at a local clinic that was willing to do them. And they essentially light mugwort on fire and put it near some pressure point in your toes that encourages the baby to flip. That's all I really know about it. And so, of course, that I was skeptical. So she did some acupuncture points and spots that I had not done before. And then she did the moxibustion. And I said, okay, like, I know she didn't flip during that. And she was like, oh, no, she's not going to flip during the appointment. She said, what you have to do is go home, lie in the elevated side lie, like the mile circuit, the elevated side lie on your left side. And at some point tonight, if she's going to flip, she'll flip at some point tonight. And so I was like, all right. And willing to try anything mode, I went to bed that night and I did it in the elevated side lie. And it was not that much time before it was very clear that she was flipping. I'm pulling up the text to my husband because I can tell you. Yeah, okay, so it was at 11 p.m. I said, this is exactly how it felt the other night. And I said, I think it must be contractions trying to turn her. And then I said, she's absolutely trying to flip. So I had felt that exact same thing that I had felt 2 days before. And because of course, 2 days before I was like, okay, maybe I'm in labor. And then I found out she's breech. So I was like, okay, that was weird. And then I was able to connect the dots whenever the exact same thing that didn't actually really feel like contractions, but it kind of did happen. And I was like, I think she's trying to turn. However, my midwife had told me that if I could feel something here, like if I could feel a bulging thing here, then it was likely her head and not her butt. She's like, her head will be easier to feel. So if you can feel it, then it's likely her head. Also, I can definitely confirm that she didn't flip before the day we did moxibustion, because I had my midwife come over and check again, and she was like, she's for sure still breech. So this was 40 plus 5. So the morning of 40 plus 5, she was for sure still breech. And that night, I am so confident, is when she turned. I woke up the next morning and still felt like what I was told was probably her head. So we stayed at home. We did a ton of stuff. This is all 40 plus 6. We did a ton of work, like 2-mile circuits, spinning babies. I did a chiropractic appointment. We did everything. And thankfully, I'm really, really thankful, we found a doctor that was willing to do an ECV. The next morning at 7 a.m., we had to be at the hospital at 5 a.m. We decided that an ECV was kind of our last resort at a vaginal birth. At this point, we had thought that she had not flipped. So we went into the hospital at 5 a.m. We got all ready for the ECV. They do a ultrasound before they place an epidural for the ECV, just to make sure that they actually have to do it. And whenever the OB did the ultrasound, she said, this is going to be short. She's head down. Looking back, that was the craziest moment, because we had thought if we have to do the ECV, we might induce right after, just to maybe keep her in the same place. Or if the ECVs failed, likely we're scheduling a C-section at that point. And so I'm going from peaceful home birth is my goal to literally just any shot at any kind of vaginal birth, while Googling like, how do you recover from a second C-section? Can you have a VBAC after 2 C-sections? All of these questions I'm asking because of course, when a baby is breech past 40 weeks or flips breech past 40 weeks, C-section is definitely something that's on the table. And so it was just really such a crazy feeling, because she was head down. She had got head down on her own just from creating space in the pelvis and through the moxibustion. And now everything was just like normal again. And that was the craziest feeling, because we went from thinking that we would likely need to have a second C-section to do we just try and go back to the home birth as planned? And I'm so thankful that I had one of my sisters who, again, that had a baby flip breech like a couple days before she was born. So she could definitely relate to the stress of that feeling. And she was like, if you don't try a home birth, I think you'll really regret it, because she's like, in 3 weeks, when it's all said and done, you'll be like, it could have been normal. Like, it could have been what I wanted. And so I went home to my husband and I was like, I still think that we should try doing the home birth. And he thought that was a fine idea. He said, I want to be really careful, and I want to have her checked, and I want to check the position until we again. And we did. And like I said, we were able to have that home birth. That is the story of how we had this little sweet one doing. My husband said she took spinning babies too literally. She was doing circles in there, and it ended up being a totally positive and fine story. This is not a recommendation that if you have a breech baby, I'm not recommending anything. I just have never heard of someone have a baby flip breech past 40 weeks and then flip back to have a normal, natural vaginal birth. And I'm just really, really grateful I'm grateful for a couple of things. After she was head down at the ECV, we stopped all position work. I didn't do chiropractic. I didn't do anything. We stopped everything. And that was honestly really relieving, because if you've ever done position work, it's a very time consuming and very stressful. And so we got to relax the week before. And I'm so thankful for the people that told us we should try it anyways. I had a few people really encouraging, just maybe you should try the home birth. If you want to watch the birth story, like I said, I think that's 2 videos back. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. As always, thank you for following along with all of our stories and just being here with my family. I will see you guys here next week on Our Sweet Sunny Days.